with 7.0 being released, everyone's doing patch analysis. This video is not about that. Don't care about which heroes are stronger, which abilities. This video is about how Valve plan on improving the overall player experience with these changes that they've implemented. One of the things that really struck me was that how much early feeding was nerfed. If you go into a game and someone's in a bad mood or they have a bad temper and they feed, they walk down mid, first 5 minutes or so, and sometimes they just start playing normally, you can report them, make them go to low priority. But the problem is it doesn't solve your match. You're sitting there for the rest of the game. It might be 30 minutes before the game is over and there's nothing you can do. So nerfing the feeding early on with a lower respawn time and lower overall gold that you get. You think, oh yeah, you respawn faster and you keep feeding faster. It doesn't necessarily give enough gold as it used to. So now it's actually much weaker. The other thing that a lot of people will be very happy about is that jungling role is nerfed a lot at the start. It's an important mechanic, the jungling, but it's been disincentivized very heavily from starting in the jungle because the Iron Talon was removed and the 1 minute respawn time on creep camps. But if you ask yourself, why are Valve nerfing the jungle? You've got to look deeper into the patches, and when you see these things like the courier has no speed burst anymore, and that the bottle crowing is not there anymore, where you refill your bottle and bring it back to mid lane, that's not there anymore. These are important mechanics and they add depth to the game, even the drafting stage. But what I think is happening is that they want to make it a more friendly environment because Dota requires a certain composition. So if you have like Medusa, Tinker and Terrorblade, that's not going to work. And a lot of the time when you pick something like a Legion Commander, it ends up being too greedy and there's not enough gold around the map to distribute it for everyone, and similar with the other resource experience. And I think that if you look at the past few patches, especially since 7.0, there's been a lot of weight put into the roaming role and emphasizing people to play that rather than the jungle. Next I'm going to start talking about ranked matchmaking. In short, it's 6-month seasons and adding a medal system on top of the already existing system. So there's 3 different perspectives that you can look at this from. One is the casual player who plays every now and again. You have the person who plays very regularly, like a daily basis. They may be very high skill, they might be low skill, it doesn't really matter. And then you have the third person who is someone who doesn't play Dota at all, or maybe they played it a little bit or they don't understand the ranking system. They have very little or no knowledge of the ranking system that's in place at the moment. For casual players, it will act as a point in the year of motivation. So there's different points within the year of motivation, such as the lead up to the International and New Bloom are 2 very significant events. But the dates at which the new season starts will also be points in the year which will help motivate these casual players to come back and play the game. For the daily player or the active player that plays on almost a daily basis, they're not going to see a huge change. It might be a minor amount of motivation for them. It'll feel like the system was working in a very, very similar way, and I think it's in Valve's intentions to keep it as similar as possible to the previous version, but just add a medal system on top of it. But now we go to the important part, which is players who don't play Dota or people who barely play video games at all. So I'm 4.5k MMR, and I tell people that, and then they say, oh, is that any good? I don't know what that means. And I tell them, oh yeah, the pro players they're like, I don't know, 7,000, 8,000. There's one guy, he got like 10,000. You know, you just say something like that. And they're like, oh, so you're like average. You're like not even 5,000. The best guy is 10,000. They don't understand how the player difficulty is distributed. And your skill level is not accurately gauged by just these numbers. So having symbols in place to say that, hey, I'm the 3rd highest rank, or I'm the 5th highest rank, or I'm the 2nd lowest, or whatever, gives you an idea of how good someone is without actually having played the game. Talking of game modes, let's go and have a look at turbo mode. I'm really liking it at the moment. It's really acts as a very good platform for players to practice new heroes, but also act as a place where new players can go and play the game as well. But you gotta ask yourself, why is it fun? And it's really confusing because the word fun itself is very ambiguous. So you gotta strip it down. You look at, right, we got the shop, it's global. We don't have a courier. Okay, the courier can't die. We don't need to know how the courier works. We don't need to have to know how the shop works. We can have 5 last hits at 20 minutes, but have a load of gold and a load of experience. So the economy is gone as well to a certain extent. So a lot of it comes down to your ability to interact and your ability to just purchase things quickly, like regen in the shop, because it's global. So you have to have a very, there's still mechanics to the game, but you've reduced a lot of the complexity. And the other big thing is that it's reduced the amount of time commitment that you have to the game. All of these things put together have made the game feel less competitive and more just about, hey, I'm going to mess around. You can do some experimental build and you won't get these people who are arsing around in your ranked matches and stuff like that. So as well, if you look before, normal matchmaking wasn't working that well for higher skill matches. My matches in normal matchmaking were unplayable. You get like level 5 accounts, people with the tangos and whatever as their flair on their accounts. It was just a mess for higher skill players. It worked for a lot of the player base, but not everyone. So as well, ability draft was added. And if you look just at both of these game modes, they act as a very good way to introduce a player and to grasp the knowledge that they need, such as how do abilities work, what are stuns, what are silences. People who've never played a mobile game, it acts as a better introduction. They don't need to understand the economy and the complexity. Now, there's another thing which is really important that they removed, was percentage-based regen on items. Now, there's still percentage-based regen based on your stats, your int and your strength. But if you go to the shop and you bought a void stone before, let's say 7.06 in a lot of patches, I don't know when it went back, but void stone did not give you more regen early on because it was percentage based. Ring of Basilius, which was cheaper, gave you less. That doesn't make logical sense to a player. If you didn't go and look up online or look up a Wikipedia or anything, you might never notice. If you didn't communicate with the other players, it might have taken you a very, very long time, 1,000 hours, and you mightn't even notice. So removing the percentage-based regen is not acting as a way of lowering the complexity of the game, but it's kind of a so-called unnecessary complexity, where it allows players to grasp the information they need on how to play the game more concisely. There's some abilities in the game, even the wording of them could be a lot more concise, such as Ancient Apparitions Ultimate. Another complexity that was removed from the game, and this was done incrementally, was unique attack modifiers. I remember when I started playing first, and I had a friend who had maybe 200-300 hours played, and I asked him, does this item work with this item? I think it was like, does Desolator work with Helm of the Dominator? And he could tell me the answer straight away. But when it went to, hey, does Maelstrom work with Desolator? They say, oh yeah, it does. But you need to understand how each interaction works. And when the Maelstrom procs, it didn't give the Desolator proc at the time. So now that's all removed. So again, it makes it easier to grasp the game. And if you look at the topics so far in this video, it's like, oh, jungling's removed, bottle crowing's gone. Oh no, they got rid of unique attack modifiers. But wait, they added something new, which is the vector targeting. It acts like a flick movement once you get used to it, but it becomes quite skillful because it comes down very heavily to how you can interpret your opponent's movement and predict where they're going to be next, because there's always this little delay with the vector targeting that you need to account for. But even if Valve removed more features like this, I still think it would make an incredibly minor difference on your skill level overall, because your ability to make good decisions, cooperate with your teammates, your awareness and various other things are going to make a much higher impact than, hey, I forgot that there's no unique attack modifiers. Keeping up with the meta is more important. I hope you like the gameplay of Turbo Mode in the background. In part 2 next week or the week after, I'll be talking about inverse kinetomatics, which is the new animation system being implemented to Dota.